BayCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series. Our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we'll be answering about that team in our August 21st preseason preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we've got, from what it looks like, an improved Sweetwater Mustang team coming up.
Yeah, and this is a Sweetwater program that for the first time in a very long time is on the positive side of the size discussion when it comes to talking about their classification. They have moved down from Class 4A D2, where they were always kind of the small school on the block, to being one of the larger schools now in Class 3A D1. So they're making that move into a new classification with a new group of teams, and it's going to be really fun to watch. They've got a really good, solid group back. 23 of their 32 lettermen return from last year's 7-5 squad, including 9 starters on both sides of the football. So, anytime you've got a young team that's bringing back that much talent, you generally expect a step forward, and you're going to be, and then you've got the added kind of interesting tidbit there in that they are moving to a new classification. So I think it's going to be a very intriguing watch this year with the Sweetwater Mustangs. This is going to be definitely a team to watch this season.
All right, before we get going, we want to remind you YouTubers to please hit the subscribe button and also hit that little bell so you'll get notifications each and every time that Big Country Preps comes up with a new video. Also, we'd like to thank a couple of our sponsors, beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of KLAX 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, give Rob a shot at 254-559-2266. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. That is Rob Durham up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge.
All right, and with that, let's go ahead and talk about the Sweetwater Mustangs. Let's jump into some of the biggest questions facing this team going into the 2024 season, and I'll start with one of the few major weaknesses they had last year, and that was on the defensive side, where they really struggled to make stops last year. Obviously, they were very explosive offensively, and good enough as a whole to go 2 rounds deep in the Class 4A D1 D2 playoffs. So this was a good football team. I think they're key to taking the next step forward to becoming a very good football team is improving on that defensive side of the football. So I think that is going to be something I'm going to be watching this year. Is with those 9 starters back on that side of the ball, with the experience they gained last year, can they take a big step forward on that defensive side of the football? Because if they can, watch out. This could be a really special season for Sweetwater.
I think the problem with that defense last year was just youth and with the natural flow of things. They're going to get more mature and more physical, and that's where I mean, if they were weak last year in a serious weakness, it might have been in the physicality department. That was just because they were young and
Mm-hmm.
smaller. Um, Up front this year, my question: we've been following Russell Lucas, football teams for a long time now. Man, it's pushing almost 20 years, but we've never really seen Coach Lucas with a team that was, and as much success as he's had, we've never seen Coach Lucas with a big, strong, physical team to work with really big offensive linemen, even dating back to his Hamlin days. Typically, he's had to, make do with teams that are a little on the smallish side. This year, Dan, it's not the case. They've got some big offensive linemen. They got Jose Cruz that's 290 pounds. They've got Hassani Myers, 6'2", 275. And they've got, I mean, man, it's gonna be interesting to see what Coach Lucas does because he's a guy that likes to spread the field with a smallish team and play a finesse style just out of necessity. This year he has the tools to get mean if he wants to. They've got that. So it's gonna be kind of cool to see what he chooses to do, what direction.
Yeah, 3 or 4 O linemen, 250 pounds or more, so they are going to be on the bigger side this year, which will be interesting to watch. And then you mentioned if they want to get mean and run that football, they've got a really good candidate to do it with Corday Moore at the running back position, 1,000-yard rusher last year with 24 touchdowns on the ground, so a very explosive player there. The last question we'll talk about on tonight's video is at the quarterback position, where they got a really strong debut performance from Caden Ortiz last year as a freshman, throwing for over 2,300 yards and 20 touchdowns. Like I said, as a first-year high school player. I'm interested to see what kind of development we see from him. And you mentioned that some of their weakness last year was just in physical weakness because they were a young team. I'm excited to see this kid continue to mature, not only physically but as a player as well. And I think we're going to see some of that this year. We're going to see him build on what he did last year, and I'm excited to see just how much because this is another one of those things that makes I think Sweetwater such an intriguing team is they got a ton of experience last year and they're still young at a lot of positions. And in Caden Ortiz at that quarterback position, that I think is probably exemplifies that more than anyone. Still just a sophomore and a kid that is already an accomplished player at his position. So I'm excited to see what his development looks like. I think he went through a learning curve last year and was still able to lead them to 7 wins into the second round of the playoffs. If he takes the step forward that he could this year, again, that's going to be a fun team to watch and what I think will be a very fun District 3
Yeah.
AD1.
All right. And with that, we're going to take a look at Sweetwater's schedule for 2024. We'll start with the non-district portion. And Dan, they open up with a couple of road dates that are tough at Idalou and then at Midland Greenwood. That's going to be on August 30th and September the 6th. If you want to toughen your team up, that's a good way to do it. They're going to be hosting Seminole on September the 13th, at Lubbock Estacado on September 20th, and then a home date with the Wall Hawks on September 27th. So, I mean, you go through that non-district portion, and you're going to be ready for district. At least, I mean, mentally, as long as you avoid the medical tent, you're going to be ready up here after facing that group.
And then after an open date on October 4th, they open district October 11th with a home game against San Angelo TLCA before starting a really tough 4 game stretch that begins on the road at Comanche on October 18th before coming home to face Clyde on the 25th of October. They then go on the road to face Breckenridge on November 1st before wrapping up their district schedule at home against Jim Ned on November 8th. So a really fun district schedule and I think a really intriguing one to start this stint in Class 3A.
All right, game of the year for Sweetwater. Most important game, if you're going to circle one on the calendar, the most important game for the Mustangs. What are
If
you
I'm
circling?
circling, if I'm circling one, it's going to be that home game to close out the regular season against Jim Ned. But I'm also intrigued by the first two of that 4 game stretch at Comanche and at home against Clyde. Those are going to be 3 fun games, I think.
I think, well, this district is tough. I mean, there's some good football teams in this district, and it's going to be fun to watch. Um, but I agree with you. I think that season finale at home in the Mustang Bowl against Jim Ned should be a very good football game. It'll be fun, a fun atmosphere. We'll see how it goes. But I think if I'm going to circle one, I'm going to circle that one. All right, with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Sweetwater Mustangs. But before we do that, we want to remind you that August 21st is the big day here at Big Country Preps. That is the day we release our preseason football preview. It'll have previews of all our 11-man teams, and there's going to be a few extras this year, as Dan will tell you shortly, plus a 6-man preview. We'll have player features for all of our 11-man teams. We'll have stats, standings. We'll have lots of video. We'll have lots of photos, predictions, you name it. We're going to have it. It's the most comprehensive look at Big Country High School football of any media source you're going to find.
And as Evan mentioned, it will be growing this year with the addition of 5 new schools. Those are Glenrose, Mineral Wells, Graham, Toller, and Miles. So we are super excited to add those 5 to the mix. We hope y'all are excited to follow our coverage of those teams throughout the school year. In the meantime, thank you for joining us for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series. And make sure you come back tomorrow when we talk about the Snyder Tigers here at BigCountryPreps.com.